Yeah, right.
Because we're not even going to fill the front.
That's right. Yeah. All right, let me get started. Cheers.
So I'm Russ Housley. I'm here because your normal co-chair cannot be, and so I'm just pinch hitting, and then I'm chairing the session after this in the same room.
And I will pinch hit for that. This is SIPCORE. This is Note Well. It's Wednesday, even though it's a new Note Well, hopefully Thursday. Whoa. You should have seen this many times before, but we do ask you to please make sure that you remain in compliance with our IPR policy. It really is important. This morning for SIPCORE, I'll just discuss the drafts in progress. We have one presentation on session timer, race conditions, and then we'll turn it over to STIR.
We're not going to start till 10:30 in STIR, no matter how long this takes.
Okay. These are the drafts that we have in progress. As you can see, several of them are in last call, and most of those last calls have finished. Spam, CDIV parameter, Q850 reason, and push have all done their last call. We have two other documents in our queue: session timer race, which we'll discuss in a minute, and auth-n. Did you want to say something? Yeah. Introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, Rifat Sheikh Youssef. I'm the co-author of auth-n. So I'm here just to ask people to review this document and provide feedback. So we haven't seen any activity on this document. So please take a look, and if you have any comments, suggestions, questions, whatever.
Right.
Thank you.
So we really would like to clear our catalog of drafts. A lot of these have been hanging on for a while. As you can see, we are moving, but reviews are what we need to finish this off. It's not chairs running through process. It's people reading drafts and commenting. We would appreciate you taking the time to read the drafts, remembering that no one will read your drafts if you don't read and comment on somebody else's drafts. That's how the process works, folks. We would really appreciate it if you would read and comment on all of these. I mean, even the ones that have been in last call, we did not get very many reviews on most of those last calls. And even though we have finished officially last call, if you would send in comments or at least tell us that you think it's ready to go, that would be very helpful for moving down in the process, and the document shepherds would really like to see that.
This is Ben as area director. I'd like to reinforce that last bit. A working group last call with no comments is not a successful working group last call. That doesn't, because one of the things we want to gauge is, do people still care?
Yeah. Any other comments or questions on our documents? All right.
Sorry. Rifat
Go
again.
ahead.
We have another document, digest document, and it's I think expiring today. There was support for this document. I think I'm still receiving emails talking about asking me about this document. So I was wondering, what is the plan for that document? Are we gonna ask the group whether they are interested in?
Yeah, we're kind of in the middle of all this last call stuff, and I'd like to clear the decks on those. But yes, we will there was a fair number of people who were indicated they were interested in it. So yes, there will be a call for adoption on that document.
Okay, thanks.
Those are not my slides.
Ah, sorry. I did the wrong thing. I'm sorry. I'm looking. Why don't-
Yeah.
No, sorry. I picked the wrong one. How's that? You want that? It's all set.
Make sure it works.
Sorry.
Okay, this is actually work that we started already previously. It's been on hold for a while due to other things. Gonna take this one. Other things, mainly zip push, but also some work that's going on in other working groups. Yes, bundle is still around, and IceBiz and so on. Basically, the whole background of this is a problem that has arisen in real deployments, and initially we filed an errata about this because we thought, this is something that we can fix by changing one or two sentences in one section. But when we start looking into this, and especially when we got the call flows from network, we realize it's not that simple. So this is just agenda. So here I'm going to just show a call flow showing the problem. So far, so good. This is a call between a user agent and an application server going via proxy that supports session timer. You have the invite going. The UA indicates support for timer, indicates that I want to be the refresher. It goes to the application server. The application server sends 183 back, and you get an early dialogue. And nothing strange there. What is important here, and you'll see that in a while, is that the 183 doesn't contain any session expires header field because it's not allowed according to RFC. Currently, it's only allowed in invite, update, and the 200 OK responses to those. So you do have an early dialogue established here, but the session timer negotiation is still ongoing. Now then the fun thing starts. At some point during this early dialogue, the application server is going to send an update for whatever reason. It is indicating supported timer here, and it also reflects the session timer. It indicates it is the UAS, which is fine because, well, actually it's not. It's trying to change the role, who is the refresher, because when the invite came, the UA indicated I want to be the refresher. And again, the 183 never contained a reply to that, but now the AES, while the session timer negotiation is still ongoing, it sends an update where it changes this value. It goes to the UA, and the first funny thing here is that the UA accepts the update, but it doesn't include anything session timer related in it. Now, the proxy, when it receives this 200, okay, it is going to insert a session timer, and it's going to indicate that the refresher is the UAC. And the reason why it's going to do that is, before we come there, this text that you see here is actually copy-pasted from the RFC. It says, in a session refresh request sent within a dialog with an active session timer, the session expires header field should be present. Again, it is present here in the update, but the question is the session timer active? Because again, it hasn't been negotiated yet. Then what I was about to say is that the UA doesn't include a refresher in the update response. I don't really have the exact reason why it doesn't do it, but could it, for example, that the UA considers the session timer negotiation still ongoing? And then what I said was that when the proxy receives this, he's actually going to insert UAC, that one acts as the refresher, even though the AES said, I want to be that. And the reason for that is that, again, this is text from the RFC, saying that the proxy must insert a session expired header field into the response with the value it remembered from the forwarded request. It must set the value of the refresher parameter to UAC, which is a little strange. It doesn't really care what the value has been previously. It says it must set the value of the refresher parameter to UAC. So in this case, it's going to cause some problem, because now when the application server receives this 200 OK, it is actually going to reject the whole invite. because of this, and the session has expired. No, sorry, the session establishment has failed. And again, this is a problem, and here you can see the whole flow in one slide if you want to. I see Paul is in the queue. Do you wanna comment on this flow, or?
Go ahead, remote.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
It dawned on me. If you go back a slide, well, yeah. Go back a slide. Can you go? Yeah.
This one?
Yeah. When the update is sent by the AS here saying refresher equals UAS, I mean, UAC and UAS in these messages is relative to the request, isn't it? And so, since it's going in the opposite direction from the invite, you know, a UAS, it's saying UAS is consistent with the prior invite that said that, you know, in the invite, the UA was saying it wanted to be the one that was in charge by saying UAC, and so the UAS is acceding to that as it has to, but when it sends the update with UAS in it, then it's consistent with that.
Did you double check that? Because I was actually looking at RFC. I was thinking the same thing, and
I kind of casually looked, and I didn't really find anything in particular. But I mean, UAC and UAS is always kind of like a transaction thing. I think one has to assume that. So I mean, it doesn't really change the problem, because if you just flip the circumstance and said that the UA started out by asking for UAS, I mean, rather than, you know, in the invite, then the problem would arise anyway. But
what I mean is what you're saying is right, and then there is really, I think it's quite obvious that sending this 480 is wrong, because there is no race.
Sending the 480 in this case would be wrong, but then you could construct a different case that would fail by having the invite say UAS rather than USC.
I mean, I think you would have the problem if this update, for example, said refresh a UAC, because it tries to change the value. But anyway,
well, that would be an error. I mean, another way, of course, would be to have the invite not specify who is going to be it, and
I'm here as well. I actually sort of remember this. Shockingly, Jonathan Rosenberg, who wrote this session timer draft with Steve Donovan, who's also at IETF. I don't know if he's in the room. So, hey, Paul. My memory matches what you're saying on what Paul is saying about it's a transactional parameter for UAC and UAS, like vaguely memory. And I just did a quick look, and it seems to be what it says. So,
Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Good. So, but I'm going to move forward.
I'm sorry I didn't bring that up before, by the way. I kind of noted it earlier, but then I didn't ever bring it up. I kind of forgot about it.
I think I will double check it, but I'm going to move forward, because I think this is just because, like I said, there could be a case here where the AS actually tries to change the role, and I think that's let's see. Okay, this is just where I'm trying to see who we can blame here. There's been a lot of comment. For example, one said, no, the AES shouldn't change the refresher role within the initial session timer negotiation is going. The UA should not, or should include the parameter in the update response, and the AES should not reject the invite because of a session timer ambiguity, and so on and so on. But I think the this is actually what the RFC says today. It's not related to this, what Jonathan and you just talked about. But the RFC does describe the procedure for mid-dialogue request. It says, I don't think the procedures do not cover the case when a mid-dialogue request is sent during an ongoing session timer negotiation transaction. For example, in this case, the invite transaction. Once the invite transaction is done, and you negotiate the session timer and you send updates within the session and you change the session time, and there's no problem with this. So I think the problem is when you're sending this update within an ongoing invite transaction where you are negotiating the session timer. This is actually the solution which is currently in the draft, and there's been a lot of comment on that, mostly from Paul. Thank you very much for that. So this is actually not something that we're suggesting to I mean, this is how it's going to be. We need to change the text. So basically, I'm going to skip over this, and I'm going to skip. This is more what I parse from the discussions that we've had on the list. It looked better in my slides, but anyway. So the idea here is to say that the session expires header can only be included in a session refresh request if there is no ongoing negotiation or session timer negotiation. If there is an ongoing, don't include it. And there is also something saying if there's a race condition, in this case, if the AS sends an update and it tries to change this value or even includes the value during this ongoing negotiation, send a 491 request pending or whatever, reject the request. There's also been some suggestion, just discard it and whatever. The problem is that if you discard it, then you may have the proxy inserting the value anyway, because that's what the RFC says. And then there was actually one of the comments which was said by Paul was that if we say the previous text, the third bullet that you see here is that the previous text says that if there is no session header expires header field in a response, it will disable the session timer mechanism. That's how it's written today. But which actually by mistake disabled that, so it's not really possible. So that text actually will be removed. So it should be possible to disable the session timer during the session. We're not trying to that's what a mistake. But the idea was here again to say that it's not possible to disable the usage of session timer while there is an ongoing negotiation of the session timer, because again, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do anything related to session timer while there's an ongoing negotiation of it. Again, this is just some of the comments. There were more backup slides here. I'm not going to read through this. You can see those here. This was sent by Paul. You have the date there and my reply. There were other replies also, but I tried to put the highlights here. Something else. Again, as I said, I'm not really here. We're not going for working group last call or anything here. This is just, should I say, when SIP push hopefully is done and bundle is hopefully soon done, more like a reboot. We need to fix this. I will read the text and as indicated by Paul and Jonathan and see. So that's all I had. But basically, the comments or the discussion, the focus should really be on these things that you can do when there is an ongoing transaction to avoid these possible glares. Because again, skipping back, there could be a case where the application server sends an update with a refresh UAC, and then you have the problem. Okay, that's it.
Yeah, so the question that we have is everybody okay with the approach that the document currently says? And, we can argue about any specifics in the text, but is the approach right? Is the problem well stated? Is the solution what we think we want to do? Yeah. Go ahead. Remote.
Oh. Hi, everybody. Just I think the problem is well stated. I'm not sure I'm happy with the proposed solution in the document, because my first question would be, can we just solve it by enforcing a consistent behavior on UAs? Meaning, if you are initiating a SIP session timer, you should be sending the same values consistently versus including and not including the session timer settings in initial invite and not in not support, basically not including it in 200OK for an update. And as a possible solution, if one of the UAs gets an inconsistent session timer indication, just start a new update transaction, new SIP session timer refresh right after negotiation is complete, instead of kind of dropping the invite transaction or dropping the dialogue. I think this is more consistent with how SIP session timer operates right now, and it probably will provide a solution which works if either one of the UAs is implementing it.
Just without going into the details, it seemed like I skipped over this slide, this way forward, and I think the thing I have here in the third bullet is that if possible, our aim should be try to minimize the impacts on UAs. Because I mean, you got thousands of them out there, so that's really not feasible. And I also think one of the reasons, I think what was, maybe I didn't make that very clear, but in the call flow I had, the call was between a UA and an application server, not between two UAs. Mm-hmm. I mean, of course, the application server is a UA from a SIP perspective, but again, it's a network entity, and you don't have too many of those, so it's much easier to actually fix those. One application server, to patch that one is easier than, patching 2 million.
Sure, but that isn't the, well, I guess for session timer, that probably is the common case.
Yeah, I mean,
session, UA to UA, they don't do session timer.
Well, sure. And as the first bullet here says also that whatever solution we come up with, it's going to have impact on existing deployments. Yeah. So I mean, there is. Otherwise, if it was just about clarifying something, that would be fine. But I think we're going to have to add some must and must nots in the document. And yep.
Yeah. Roland Jeske here, Deutsche Telekom. I think the discussion we had around the session timer, I think that the focus is well defined what we are looking for. The most important is what going to Roman's comment, that we don't have too many messages with regard to the user agent itself. So if we have a final negotiation, that's it. So, and wait for the refresh after some time. What I would like to see is that the proxy behavior is well documented, because you have to puzzle a little bit around to find the complete picture within this RFC. And that's the main problem, which I have with discussions with vendors and other people and interconnection partners. And nobody knows really what exactly has to be done with regard to that.
Well, that's part of what he's trying to do. He wants to make sure that it's very well specified what everything does. But I think your comment about the proxy has to make sure that it does the right thing is very important. Yeah,
that's very important, and I think we're going the right direction. I fully support the work. Thank you.
Paul, remote. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay. I just wanted to respond back. The claiming that there's some distinction between a UA and an AS seems like a red herring to me. I mean, look at this. I mean, you say we only do with session timer with ASs or something. Well, note that the session timer had to be initiated by the UA. I mean, at least in this case, it was initiated by the UA. And so, the UA didn't necessarily know it was calling an AS. So, I mean, I think that's a whole red herring. I mean, I think there is an important distinction between UAs and proxies. And so if, in terms of evaluating where the most impact falls, and who's most able to fix it.
Where do you stand on the solution? Do you like what Krister is proposing, or would you prefer what Roman wants?
My original proposal. I mean, Krister actually has my original a couple of different proposals, in here up at the beginning. My initial thought was just to ignore, and then I don't think I like that. I mean, I think not having the update that's embedded in an invite not carry the session expires doesn't. I mean, it can work. I mean, we can make it work, but it doesn't feel quite right to me. It seems like, I mean, I think the other comment that just required that it be consistent, might be as good or better. But I don't think we've explored the implications of that.
Yeah, I think we'll take it to the list. I don't think
Well, right.
we're going into
Right.
details here, so I don't think
No,
we
no,
need to yeah.
My goals were to move this along and make sure that we all agreed on the process, on what the problem was. Good, everybody's agreeing on where the problem lies, and at least understands what we're saying. We understand what we're saying about solutions, right? Yeah, we've got more than one solution. We should do that on the list. I think we don't have them here, and I don't think trying to accomplish that is worthwhile. Are there any other comments or questions on this subject? We're going to try and push you guys to get this done. It's been hanging around a long time.
I mean, this is one of the things which is actually causing problems in real networks. So it has to. This is not fancy stuff that we can work on here just forever. So
Roman, go ahead.
Yeah, just to comment, even with Krister's solution, and again, I don't want to differentiate between application server versus UA. They're just UAs as far as SIP session timer is concerned. I don't think there is a solution which can be implemented without changing to the UAs. It will affect something or somebody. Mm-hmm. So saying that, again, asking UAs to be consistent, that will affect UAs. Ignoring update within invites will affect some of the UAs because they will essentially take down the SIP session timer. So no matter what we do, because of the ambiguity, somebody will be affected.
Right. I totally agree, and my intention was not to say that we must not change the UA. I mean, if that's the best way, then that's what we're going to do. But I just think having this mindset, can this be fixed somewhere else? But if not, then we have to fix the UA. So,
right. And again, with proxies, there is they cannot force new SIP session timer negotiation. They cannot start new transactions. So it's very limited things can be done for proxies. So I don't think it can be fixed from there. But again, it does bring a whole new set of problems. And again, there are possible solutions, but I don't think it's possible to have a backwards compatible solution without affecting one of the without affecting UAs.
Okay. So what I ask is that we have this discussion on the list, that everybody try and work together and try and compromise or see each other's point of view, pick a direction. Let's get the text right and get the document done.
And I think once we get the different solutions, good document or cleared out, I'm probably going to have set up some phone meetings. Probably no interims, but just informal meetings, phone meetings for whoever is interested. Of course, I will inform people on the list and so on. I mean, we don't need to discuss those details here. I mean, if you want an interim, that's fine too. But whatever. But otherwise,
participants are perfectly. We're fine if you go and talk to one another, but it's not a work. It's not a work group thing, and anything you bring back is just a proposal that the work group will consider.
Of course.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anything else for SIPCORE? All right. We are done with SIPCORE, and STIR will start at 10:30.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The blue sheets.
Blue sheets, please. You don't. Mm-hmm.
Just push it out. I copied you. Matt's response to that. So if you had a chance to,
Never. I got a context switch.
Okay. So this is an off document. Right. It is in the ISG. This is your review.
What? Okay. When did they send it?
They sent it a few weeks ago.
Okay, probably just got missed in my
Let me then. Okay.
Can you send me?